Welcome to the conservative political stronghold of Brentwood, California, Congressman Pete Hoekstra. Pete Hoekstra, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, led congressional oversight of the U.S. intelligence community during its modernization to confront the threats of the 21st century. He's currently the Shillman Fellow at the IPT, Investigative Project on Terrorism. He's an advisor to the Foreign Policy National Security Team of the Republican nominee Donald Trump. Pete Hoekstra.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here, Karen. It's a great effort and a great organization, and it's kind of an honor to be the wrap-up speaker for the morning session before you go off to lunch. You know, I'm a business guy. I've got a marketing background, so that kind of puts it in context. I spent, after some time in the business world, I spent some time in the world of politics, applying my marketing and business background into politics, focusing on the last 10 years, focusing on the threat from radical Islam. I got on the Intelligence Committee in January of 2001, and of course 9 months later we saw what happened on that date, and for the rest of my time in Congress I spent about 90 to 95% of my time there focusing on that threat, having the opportunity to serve as the lead Republican on the Intelligence Committee for a number of years. Today I spend most of my time working with someone who is very familiar with you, Steve Emerson, the Investigative Project on Terrorism. You know, Steve and I were great friends in the 1990s when he started his effort in terms of identifying these threats and trying to educate Congress that the threat was real and that we needed to act. And where are we 20 years later? All of the great groups that we've seen this morning represented by very talented people. What we do know is in 2016 we are losing. We are not winning this war in defeating this threat from radical Islam. We just completed a study at the Investigative Project on Terrorism. From 2001 to 2007, there were about 2,500 people per year killed as a result of the threat of radical Islam and the actions that they undertook. 2,500 per year in 2001 to 2007. 2008 to 2011, that number had grown to about 3,300 per year. 2012, 2013 goes up to 9,000. 2015, 2014, 2015, that number is now approaching 30,000 people per year losing their lives as a result of radical Islam. That is the result of 15 years of effort by the United States and others to confront and defeat this threat, from 2,500 per year to almost approaching 30,000 people per year. The threat has now moved from the Middle East, it's northern Africa, the weapons from Libya going into the rest of Africa, the threat's expanding into Asia, and the threat, of course, as we've heard from the speakers this morning, is now very, very real in Europe. The frightening thing is that these are a result of conscious decisions that have been made by politicians in Washington, D.C. From 2000, that's not a reason for applause, I'll tell you, because the decisions are frightening. You know, in 2003, a friend of mine came to me on the House floor and said, Pete, would you like to go to Libya with me and meet with Muammar Gaddafi? I said, no, not really. And he came back and said, no, it's serious. The Bush administration thinks that Gaddafi's ready to come in from the cold. So, you know, after a bipartisan strategy, Republicans and Democrats for 30 years had ostracized Gaddafi, put pressure on him. 2003, 2004, after this long American strategy, he decided he was going to flip sides. He gave up his nuclear weapons program. He paid reparations to the victims of his terrorist activities, and he became a partner in fighting radical jihadists. I had an opportunity to meet with him 3 times in Libya. I'm not a big fan of Gaddafi, but I am a fan of what he did. That he actually flipped sides and became a partner in stabilizing northern Africa and fighting radical jihadists. In 2009, we got a new president, and we got a new Secretary of State. And you need to take a look at the decisions that they made. They partnered and they decided to partner with the Muslim Brotherhood because they believed that the problems with radical jihadists, the problems in the Middle East, in the Muslim world, were a result of American activities. And that if we changed our behavior towards radical jihadists, they would change their behavior towards us. So they decided to partner with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and get rid of Mubarak. Not a great move. Thankfully, the people in the military got rid of Morsi and Sisi moved into power. Otherwise, today we would be talking about losing Egypt. But what we do know is that we lost Libya. In Libya, they partnered with radical jihadists to overthrow an ally and believe that they would usher in a period of democracy and human rights into Libya. Today it is a failed state. It is exporting fighters, ideology, and weapons throughout northern Africa, into Europe, into the Middle East, into Syria, and it is a failed state. We now have 5 failed states to begin with. Afghanistan, Yemen, Libya, Syria, Iraq, all that are exporting this ideology, fighters, and weapons around the world. It's a conscious decision that we made. And it's not only a conscious decision that we made overseas, it is a conscious decision that this administration has made in Washington, D.C. We've got a report and a book coming out from the Investigative Project on terror that talks about caliphate on the Potomac. Why? Because this administration has opened its doors at the State Department, at the White House, to CARE and other groups to influence and advise on policy. They have allowed Muslim Brotherhood affiliated groups and individuals to come into the United States and travel around the country to espouse their philosophy and ideology and to raise money for their efforts. And it's a deep history of who they have let into this country. So we're not losing because they're good. The enemy is good. But we're losing because of the decisions that our political leaders have made to embrace this ideology and blame the United States of America and our views. Let me close with 3 items that I think we need to do. The most important card that you have on your table is the action card. All right? Because we have a tremendous number of groups. We have won and we have the documentation to win the battle based on information. Okay? We've got tremendously talented people who have prepared you with the documentations and the documentation and the facts to show why we are right and that this is a real threat. But we have a problem. This is not about winning the intellectual battle. We are at a point where we need to win the battle of public opinion. And everything is arrayed against us. The media is arrayed against us. The political elites are arrayed against us. But this is now a political communication battle to win the hearts and the minds of the American people. And we need to convey 3 ideas. We need to concretely establish that America matters. I'm an immigrant. My parents lived under Nazi occupation longer than any other. They lived in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands was occupied longer than any other country during World War II. I can tell you to the Dutch, America matters. To Europe, America matters. And we need to recognize that if we are going to defeat this ideology, we need to again embrace the thought and the belief that America matters to the rest of the world and it matters to us. Because if America does not do this, who will? And the thing is, we have the emotional arguments on our side, the right arguments. America matters, but we also need to start asking the question and making the statement that America will not turn our back on the Christians in the Middle East. That America will not turn its back on the Christians in the Middle East, those that are suffering at the hands of radical jihadists. We will not turn our backs on them, but that's the easy one. But then start talking and asking the question of those who oppose us. Make the question, America will not turn our back on the Yazidis. America, we will not turn our backs on the women in the Muslim world. We won't turn our back on the women who are sold into slavery as sex slaves. We will not turn our backs on the women in Africa who have been kidnapped by Boko Haram. We will not turn our backs on the gays and the lesbian community and how they are being treated in the Muslim world. We will not turn our backs on Muslim women. I thought that slide, that's an awful slide. Wearing a mask to muzzle. That's not, the question is, can we coexist together? No, that is not what America stands for. We will not stand, and what we have to recognize is that we will be called terrible things. And you've heard the term about Islamophobia, but have you recognized the new term? We are now white supremacists. How many of you have heard the term? All right? We are now white supremacists, and we are called that because they want to belittle our intelligence and call us racist bigots, rather than what we are. So we are standing up for America. We're standing up because we believe America matters, and we believe that American values matter, and they matter around the world. And the third thing that we need to do, and this is the commitment, and it's in this room, but we got to convince the rest of us, the rest of America. We need to make the commitment that today, America's worth fighting for. America needs us now more than it's ever needed us before. Take a look at what's going on in Europe. The threat is real. If we don't stand up for our values, if we don't stand up for America, if we don't stand up, who will? And if we don't stand up, and if we are not successful, what will the world be left with? We have always been that shining city on the hill. It is under threat. And when you leave here today, just remember that America needs us now more than it has ever needed us in its history. Thank you very much.